It is no surprise to the average rational person that Silicon Valley practices election meddling in U.S. elections far more than any other country. At this point, we have all become aware of the obvious political bias of big tech companies such as Google, Facebook, and Twitter. However, upon further investigation, I've come to realize the special treatment of some users on said platforms go above and beyond anything I had imagined. For example, let's explore some of the bigotry on display from verified Twitter accounts that remain active with a follower base that continues to expand. For instance, let's take this verified Twitter account I came across recently. White people are shooting up mosques. White people are shooting up synagogues, schools, children, and brown children. Make a banner about ending whiteness. March against whiteness. Rally against whiteness. Raise your megaphone against whiteness. Talk to the streets against whiteness. Until and unless we eradicate toxic whiteness, the violence will never stop. Behold, the champion of the people, the strong woman fighting against bigotry for minorities of all kinds, calling for the eradication of one particular type of people. Does that ring a bell? Sure, her tweets might be borderline Nazi coupled with sociopathic rhetoric. However, that's just what it takes to eradicate evil, right? I've seen some awful content on Twitter, as I assume most individuals have. However, it is often deleted or fades into non-existence due to lack of notoriety of the user. I myself had tweets far from oppressive and questionably even controversial deleted, as well as Instagram posts taken down. But of course, this is simply because I stand on the political right for most issues. The allowed bigotry of the left has become so apparent, only those who enact willful blindness will fail to notice. In comparison to the conservative types whom are censored daily, having posts that reflect even a glimpse of controversy removed immediately on the grounds of hate speech, a term that is loosely defined and subjectively applied. One of the first instances of this ideology that I came across that originally enacted my interest in the subject was a debate with Jordan Peterson and Eric Mike Dyson on political correctness, in which words cannot do justice.
Jordan's point about how does he, in a sense, get an equal voice in this debate back if it is implied that his participation brings with it this baggage of white privilege that doesn't allow him to see clearly the issues that are before us.
But that is to be complicit in the very problem itself terminologically. You're beginning at a point that's already productive and controversial. You're saying, how can he get his equality back? Who are you talking about? Jordan Peterson? Trending #1 on Twitter? Jordan Peterson with an international bestseller? I want him to tweet something out about me in my book. Jordan Peterson, right? This is what I'm saying to you. Why the rage, bruh? You're doing well, but you're a mean, mad white man, and you're going to get us right.
What I derive from that series of rebuttals, let's say, is twofold. The first is that saying that the radical left goes too far when they engage in violence is not a sufficient response by any stretch of the imagination, because there are sets of ideas in radical leftist thinking that led to the catastrophes of the 20th century, and that was at the level of idea, not at the level of violent action. It's a very straightforward thing to say you're against violence. It's like being against poverty. It's like, you know, generically speaking, decent people are against poverty and violence. It doesn't address the issue in the least. And with regards to my privilege or lack thereof, I mean, I'm not making the case that I haven't had advantages in my life and disadvantages in my life like most people. You don't know anything about my background or where I came from, and it doesn't matter to you because fundamentally I'm a mean white man. That's a hell of a thing to say in a debate.
Today we face an altogether different threat. The power of big tech. What makes the threat of political censorship so problematic is the lack of transparency.
As Cruz alludes to, there is zero transparency in the world of big tech's political bias. Zuckerberg remains adamant that the role of Facebook is to simply provide a connecting network rather than intoxicating anybody with a particular ideology. However, unfortunately for Zuckerberg, there is substantial evidence to suggest otherwise.
If you're going to restrict American citizens from participating on a platform where even the president speaks, and it's essentially you have a privately owned public space, if I could use an analogy that would be most apt, and you've set rules that are not recognized by the U.S. In fact, when it came to a Supreme Court hearing, they said hate speech is not a violation, it's actually protected free speech. So there's actual odds. So there might be someone who says, I refuse to live by any other means than what the Supreme Court has set down. That means I have a right to hate speech. You will ban them. That means your platform is so powerful It's being used to manipulate elections, and you have rules that are not recognized by the government to remove American citizens from that discourse. So as a private platform, you've become too powerful to not be regulated if you refuse to allow people free speech.
Big tech must decide if it is a platform for individuals to exchange free ideas without fear of repercussion, or if it is a publisher curating content using a specific narrative much further than the simple removal of content advocating for violence.
As I understand your background, you're not a Republican and nor are you a conservative. Is that accurate?
That would be an understatement.
And indeed, you're the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today.
Correct.
So you're a respected academic. You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I want to make sure I understand. You personally supported and voted for Hillary Clinton.
I was a very strong public supporter of Hillary Clinton, yes.
So you're not dismayed that people voted for her, but your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
On a massive scale, and what I'm saying is that I believe in democracy, I believe in the free and fair election, more than I have any kind of allegiance to a candidate or a party.
And looking forward, if I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big tech's manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
As you can see, the threat goes far beyond kicking small political pundits off social media or restricting the spread of conspiratorial content. The real threat is the continued meddling in our elections. For without a free society, we no longer have a voice in who will rule the free world. Something that perhaps needs more light shed on it to wake the average American citizen up to the authoritarian tactics current media platforms are participating in.